It is shame. Shame of who we are. I'm in a human body. And somehow being naked is bad. And then this gets into sexual oppression. The ways in which different societies, different governments have oppressed people, and primarily those with vulvas, though I believe that all of us are oppressed through patriarchal, misogynistic systems. Even the ones at the top. Just because you're at the top doesn't mean that you're having a good time. Yet, there's this sense of righteousness about what I believe needing to be what others believe. That I have to enforce my truth onto others. And if they don't agree with me, then they have to go to prison. They have to be punished. They have to again, stories of how the world works. Happens up here. Tapping back into the truth of this experience right now, right here, in this moment. The stories can take you down paths of fear and anxiety. But what is happening right here, right now, in my mind, body, and spirit? And when I get passionate about what I'm talking about, or when I get caught in fear and anxiety, sometimes I can lose sight of the truth of this experience right here, right now. And I get upset, or sad, or angry, at the systems. The systems that we have in place. Not systems that are created by us as individuals, yet at the same time our own way of being of individuals in a society, the ways that we've learned, the ways that we've been conditioned, contribute to upholding the ideals of those societies. And I find that if I'm not checking in with myself and sitting with my experience of those fears and anxieties, that it over time builds up tension within my body. And then I go through life being kind of shut down or bitter. And if I want to have a positive impact on the world, I want to spend as much time connected to truth and love as I possibly can. I think that's how I can contribute to the world. So I sit with the pain, I sit with the anger, I sit with the fear and the anxiety. Not trying to change it, not trying to fix it, not trying to push it away. Or sweep it under the rug. Pretend it doesn't exist. Which is easy to do with a kind of a positivity all the time kind of mindset. It's how we reject the truth of our experience. Having a positive mind is a valuable thing, but not if you can't be in truth. If it's all bullshit. And anything you explore to rewire your neural pathways to having a positive outlook. My theory on how to do this in a way that is actually helping, actually creating healing, is that when I say, so perhaps I'm using a positive affirmation. If I don't resonate in truth with that phrase, if it feels uncomfortable, if it feels weird, if it feels like I don't understand it, that it's not my experience of truth, my experience of my experience of life, that perhaps I'm rejecting it out of fear or anxiety. You know, so something as simple as something as simple as I deserve love. Brings up discomfort. So sit with the experience of the discomfort. And just observe. I believe anything that I reject is a rejection of self. And this is where I like to talk about Jekyll and Hyde. The story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is a really important one on my life. And it's it's fascinating to me how every experience in my life has really helped to shape me, and often in ways that I don't understand. Yet I've had a lot of time of exploring the ideas around my own beliefs around Jekyll and Hyde and what that story means to me. And I ended up in a play, an adaptation of Jekyll and Hyde for the stage, not the musical, but one by, I'm going to forget it. I'll have to look it up. But it's anyway, Jekyll and Hyde is such an influential story that it's bled into things like Looney Tunes. It's like Frankenstein. These stories that a lot of us know or think we know, but it's actually just we've never actually read. But it's just we understand certain themes of the story or have certain ideas of what that story is about, based on its existence in culture. And Jekyll and Hyde for me is really an exploration of truth, and this concept of good and evil creates good and evil. That shame, self-loathing, are what creates the monsters that cause harm in our society, in our world. Dr. Jekyll's rejection of the parts of himself that he didn't like, his shadow side, by trying to cut it off, he created the monster. He created Mr. Hyde. Instead of sitting with the uncomfortable feelings, looking at it, and recognizing that I have this darkness in me, which oftentimes we come up with these ideas of good and bad that really don't make any sense. So I'm not talking about killing people right now. Yeah, I think we can agree for the most part that killing people isn't great. I personally don't want to cause harm to beings in general. Yet, in order to exist, I do eat. So you can get into a whole conversation of, what's okay to eat and what's not, based on your understanding of what's okay and what's not. But it varies person to person, and really you gotta make decisions that are right for you. But what I'm getting at is a lot more of the ways in which we harm ourselves with shame, with self-loathing. That if my body looks a certain way, that I'm somehow bad. These are human-created concepts that were passed down to us. And yeah, it's good to be healthy. It's good to be in a healthy body if you are able to do that. But for most people, it's not really much of a choice. They experience the experience that they're having. And I'm kind of fascinated with this idea of healing through attention, through giving myself the attention, the attention that this body and emotional states and mind are asking for. Because when I sit with the tension in my body, the tension that has created a lot of pain that I've gone through in my experience, and that tension is related to the ideas in my head, the ways that I'm ashamed of myself, the ways that I'm holding on to beliefs that were never mine to begin with, are actually causing physical suffering. And simply by allowing myself to sit with those experiences openly, compassionately, with curiosity. It's a great thing that Ralph de la Rosa said, who's a meditator, kind of spiritual teacher of sorts, who is very much, on the path just like all of us. And I think that's important to point out, that there is no spiritual teacher who is not also trying to figure their own shit out. But he said, or they said, something that's been helpful to me, which is, if you can't, and I'm not going to say it word for word, but the idea is, if you can't meet something with love and compassion, to meet it with curiosity. Try to explore curiosity if you're struggling with love. And again, this goes back into ways of being aligned with truth versus the idea of who I should be. Because the ideas of who I should be are based on my conditioning. So instead of conditioning, what is the truth of this experience right now? And being curious about the experience. It's easy to reject pain, to want to avoid pain, because it's not pleasant. It's not a pleasurable activity. Yet that doesn't mean that it doesn't have merit, that it doesn't have value. Because I find that it does. And this gets into yin and yang. That you can't have one without the other. That if I'm going to live a life of having positive and pleasurable experiences, it also means that I'm going to experience negative and painful experiences. It's unavoidable. And this is where concepts around Buddhism come in. And to be clear, I'm not... I go back and forth on this too. Either I can say I'm not a Buddhist, or I can say that if I'm a Buddhist, then I'm also everything else in the world. I want to explore... I like exploring ideologies or theologies or philosophies that actually have things that you can practice, that are not just, this is how it is, and so that's what it's, you just have to believe that. And that's not to say that faith is not of value. Faith is also a practice. So when we can start to see these things that we learn about in religions and spirituality, rather than seeing everything as rules and regulations and black and white and this is good and bad, you explore it for yourself. What's my own personal relationship with this practice? What does it do for me? What does it bring out of me? What does it bring up for me? What kind of memories and fears and anxieties do I experience when I look at these things? And then, am I able to sit with those just like I do with the physical sensations, right? Sit with the anxiety, sit with the confusion, sit with the doubt. Not in my mind. How is it manifesting in my body? The mind... Now, this is another thing where a lot of times people think of the mind as, in spiritual circles, as... if you're getting caught up in thought, having trouble expressing what I want to here. Again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier about, science and religion. Like, this doesn't need to be a versus. It's not one against the other. It's how do all things exist simultaneously? Because they do, whether you like it or not. All things exist simultaneously. It's all interconnected. Buddhism. That's where I was going. So let's jump back to that. Buddhism recognizes that we are kind of in this constant cycle, this constant up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. And that is just gonna go on and on and on and on and on and on and on for eternity. And there are many different realms of experience. 6 realms in Buddhism that are talked about, 2 of which are heaven and hell. Yet it's not so limited as the idea of heaven and hell in Christianity, which is more like you get this one life to figure it out, otherwise you go to one or the other, and then that's the rest of eternity for you. In Buddhism, it's more everything is impermanent, even heaven and hell. So you can have a life of doing so many good things and serving others and whatever that you either on another plane of existence you are experiencing like a heaven realm, or perhaps even in your next life you come back as someone with a lot of good things happen for you, but eventually it's karma. Eventually that karma runs out, and so the cycle continues over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And so what people are exploring in that is how to either get free of the cycle, the wheel of birth and death, or simply to not just get so caught up in it. And I think that's a valuable reminder that not everybody exploring spirituality wants to become an enlightened being. But you constantly are coming back to check into truth. And truth, as I've said before, it evolves, it changes. So what is truth if it's constantly changing? And this is getting into the realm of non-dualism, and kind of Indian philosophies and spirituality and religion, and Ramana Maharshi. Would say that anything that changes is not truth. Not ultimate truth, as Ram Dass would put it. And you can think of it as the world that we live in is a dream or a simulation or the play of God, whatever. That it is just this kind of creative, it's just this imagination energy that creates all of experience. And there is ultimate truth beyond that creative exploration. And then the question is, well, do you genuinely want to step away from the dream? Do you want to step out of the dream, as like as Buddhism, says, or Anandamaya Ma said that that's our purpose here on earth, is to become enlightened, to awaken from the dream.